Hey everyone, hopefully this podcast is finding you well. Just a quick disclaimer before this episode starts. This was actually an FGC Hollywood Plus episode recorded back in late April of 2022. I took it down initially when I dissolved FGC Hollywood, but I decided to re-upload it as a standalone TMP episode because while FGC Hollywood Plus is defunct, I still wanted this podcast to be available to people, so it's the same podcast just with a different name. Anyway, that's all. Hopefully you enjoy this episode, and I'll see y'all later. This is big. You know what's funny? You and I talked about this both on TMP episode 97 that you came on, and I don't know if you remember, the summer months of 2020 were rough in the FGC, like really bad.
Everybody twit longer. I was like, damn, I like that guy. Twit longer. I was like, oh no, there was twit longer than everybody. I was like, yo, every time I open up a twit longer, it was just a bomb, man. But then that part of me was like, but like, how y'all all just go to Twitter for this stuff?
It was bad. It was the takedown in the FGC. And you know what you said on episode 1 of FGC Hollywood? Check the tapes. You said, when Mike Z was closing down everything, he's like the Fire Nation attack. He's taking down everybody.
Yo, right.
And obviously we know what happened with Mike Z, and he had the Bunny Saga, he had the stream comment saga.
That man he went down. He had his downward spiral saga, the whole arc just going down. The Fire Nation attacked this man.
It all happened right after he did my podcast, so I think it was the curse.
Yeah, it was your fault, man.
It was my fault. I'll take ownership. Sorry, Mike Z. My bad. That shit was funny. So we've had a history of talking about Mike Z on this podcast, obviously talking about Skullgirls. So people can check it out. You know what I might do actually on this show? I might attach the TMP that you were on, the MacSplicer podcast, because none of them are really available now online. I might just attach this at the end of this episode so they can get a clear understanding of where you come into the picture as far as Skullgirls is concerned, your history with that, just so you won't have to reintroduce yourself. So I'll probably I'll put it like a timestamp after we're done with this show. I'll put a timestamp and I'll link, or rather I'll attach the TMP episode you were on, so people could listen to that first and then listen to this section next. But this podcast is just going to be dedicated to all things Mike Z, that whole saga that happened in 2020, and we have 2 years to cover. So a lot to talk about. I appreciate you coming on here with me, and yeah, we can just get right to it. So the Mike Z saga, right? I want to give a little bit of background, even though we will talk about it in length, but just background for people who don't really understand who Mike Z is, what happened. So here's just a small paragraph I wrote up. So Mike Zymont, he's formerly the lead director and designer of the beloved indie fighting game Skullgirls. He also worked on Indivisible, which is, what would you call that game? What kind of game is that?
You ever heard of Valkyrie Profile?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's basically like that, or Project X Zone. I think that's another game. It's kind of like that type of game, basically. Yeah, I got it for like $5 in Walmart. So
nice. So those are the 2 games he's known for, but mostly Skullgirls. I think Skullgirls was Mike Z's like baby, right? Like,
yeah.
So Mike Z was entangled in many allegations during the summer months of 2020, as we spoke of. He was one of the parts of the summer of 2020 where you just mentioned. I mean, twit longer. Everybody was getting taken down. And Mike Z was one of them. And, it led to his public name being defamed, along with a huge hit to his reputation, right? He was basically canceled publicly, right? Just the public execution. Like you said, the Fire Nation attacked. And they took him down. So what happened, right? If people that don't know, if you're new to the FGC, what happened in the summer months of 2020? Mike Z had, what the problem I think with Mike Z is that he had so many things happen in such close proximity to each other. So
yeah, that's very true, man. I think if it would have been like breaks in between everything, he probably it wouldn't have been as bad, but it really was like the dude hit the joke, then the other thing, then the other thing.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, and it was not that far apart. And this is also like the height of where everybody was basically sitting in their houses.
Yep. COVID just started.
COVID just started. People was getting antsy. The fires started. The frozen stuff. All that stuff was happening. it was a pretty bad time in the world, I guess you could say. I was
Yeah.
fine though. It was, I just like adding that one just to throw shade at the world.
You were good. You were collecting
Yeah, y'all was
collecting
struggling,
checks.
but I was good. Yeah, man.
I remember you saying that too. I love the pandemic. I was getting money.
Yeah, man. It was great for me, man. I was, I
Yeah.
was throwing sand like a monster outside.
Mhm. Oh yeah, this is pre hand injury too.
Yeah, pre-hand injury, right?
Yeah.
This is my COVID. I got a hand injury now.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these incidents. And like you said, he swung the bat, 3 straight times in a row. Like he didn't let any
He really
balls
did
go
get 3
outside.
strikes,
Yeah.
man. You just came out of the game. So
Yeah. Right. And he was benched right away. So the first thing that happened back then was the I can't breathe comment, right? He made this joke on stream while commentating Skullgirls second encore. I believe it was a tournament or some sort of match. And, obviously it was seen in poor taste because back then I can't breathe was correlated to George Floyd, who just was practically murdered, right? Because he had a cop sit on his neck, and this was all public video. Everybody could see this. It was a huge deal. And he said, I can't breathe. And, Mike Z said that in the tournament, and I forget what the joke was. I think somebody was getting like pressured in the corner or something like that.
yeah, because I was like, when I heard that, I did laugh, but I was like, "Bruh, come on!" But it was one of those. And then he tried to like piggyback, and he was like, and he just got quiet. Everyone got quiet in there. I was like, "Yo, do you see the awkwardness of the room now?"
Yeah, it wasn't great. I know Sharpie was really offended, so it was just too soon, as they say, right? Way too soon.
Yeah, it was too soon. Yeah,
This was like maybe 2 weeks after George Floyd ended up dying from that, right? Because he suffocated with that guy sitting on his neck saying, I can't breathe. So way too soon to the incident. But you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. And that happened. The next thing that happened was the Bunny Ayumi whole case, whatever that was, which she almost won the poster for Broken Wings Wall. So thank God for that, because Pokey Feet.
I cannot let that happen, man. I'd rather Pokey Feet any day of the week than there, man.
Yeah. So what happened with the Bunny Ayumi online messages? So this was a case in which it made Mike seem like a creep online, right? It was taken out of context initially, but then we sort of understood what happened. So it was just a screenshot that Bunny Ayumi put out saying that it was Mike approaching her in a sexually themed topic and conversation. And she put out this Twitter post saying, I will no longer be playing Skullgirls because one of the developers or whatever made me feel uncomfortable. Now, this has later been dismissed as somewhat things happen. So, Bunny Ayumi was the first to initiate that conversation. And she began saying, thank you for making a video game where there is BDSM Yuri. Now,
it opens the table up for anything at that point, dude.
Yeah. So that's how the nature of the conversation started. And it continued from there. It was basically at that point just sexting until Bunny decided that she feels uncomfortable with where the conversation led. And then she decided to publicly out Mike as a creep and like an online predator because he took it where she initiated it. So that was obviously, Bunny is she's a figure in this sort of lewd modeling type of cosplay thing.
Yeah, the cosplay I hate, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna be a Goku, but I'm gonna have my titties out. I'm like, Goku wouldn't do that.
No, Goku would not do that. And she has an army of people. She has a bunch of people.
Yeah. She has a huge,
So everybody went after Mike Z, and it seemed like the perfect storm to go after him because people were so sensitive to that George Floyd comment. So now, since the reason why I said this has been dismissed somewhat is because since Bunny Ayumi's true nature, in my opinion, has been outed as someone who is known to initiate drama, right? She hasn't been clean per se. So especially in her own community, comprised of cosplayers who are more so on the risque side, as we talked about. She also has been known to bully other cosplayers, shame others, especially like fat shaming, which is ironic. But and even lie about business endeavors with her partners. So she doesn't have the cleanest name in the industry. Now, we're not going to get into the Bunny stuff. If you want to know
It's a whole
more,
can of worms.
oh
Yeah.
man, she's got a lot of skeletons in her closet. If you want to know more about Bunny Ayumi, there's a really long, detailed both Twitter post and a video with evidence and everything that you need to know about her with her former friend / potential business partner, Lena Lazar. I don't know what her name is, but depicting Bunny's actions. So throughout multiple years, her and Lena, among other people that were involved, were in quite the saga where she, lied, betrayed, and eventually she left Lena with like $20,000 worth of debt of just
Jeez, dude.
they were supposed to do like a figurine deal and it got botched. So in short, Bunny Ayumi got paid, Lena was left in debt, and it's tough to really take anything Bunny says now with any sort of real credibility because it's been lost. It's really been lost. She's burnt too many bridges at this point to really believe what she said. So that's why I say the Bunny incident almost is nothing to do with Mike Z because
like a whole cosplay community issue, I think, man.
Yes.
The whole cosplay community. It kind of reminds me, not to get too off topic, but it reminds me of how the adult entertainment industry is really bad too. Like
they're catty too?
Don't really, yeah. Oh, dude, it's really rad. It's pretty sexist and racist in that in that industry. Oh yeah, man, it's horrible. You should see not to name one, but I will. But you should watch like a what's this chick called? The Asian. No. Lisa Ann. You should watch one of her interviews talking about the industry. It's disgusting, man. It's pretty gross. It can be really, really, really gross and dark. Honestly, that's what happens. And it's just that stuff like that, man. That type of nature of work. It's just not going to be a clean one, man. When you think about it.
No. So I'm sure that the cosplay community has a lot of drama and internal politics that go into stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it's also a business. So I'm sure that they're just trying to make money. And sometimes you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Anybody that's too rich is, they've definitely probably stepped on some people, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that was the second incident after the whole George Floyd, joke comment. So that was the thing. And that was pretty big, mostly because of Bunny's following at the time. Mm-hmm. And the fact that a lot of the FGC eyes were put on her. Because I don't know if you remember this. She started playing Guilty Gear. And
that's true. Yeah.
And Obama made a video about her. And that kind of, thrust her into the spotlight in the FGC.
To be her out of all the people. But I don't. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the second incident. Now the third incident was allegations against Mike Z. Then they were made internally this time when former Lab Zero employees chose to publicly out Mike as someone who has made them feel uncomfortable in the workplace, mostly with sexual remarks and stuff that crosses the boundaries of professionalism, basically akin to sexual harassment. And they all put out their Twitter posts, and they made it known that Mike is not a person that people from the outside might think he is, because internally they felt uncomfortable. That's how they put it out there. Now, they also tried to remove Mike Z from Lab Zero Games. And he wouldn't come to terms with that because, that's his company. And so he would end up dissolving the board of employees, and he'd release the remaining people that worked at Lab Zero Games following the 3 people that already quit, which those were predominantly the ones that were trying to tarnish his character and try to basically assume ownership of Lab Zero. And that was basically the final fallout before he kind of went dark. So Autumn Games at that point and Hidden Variable, which are the 2 proprietors of Skullgirls, the IP, they put out a statement that they will no longer be working with Lab Zero Games and detaching themselves and the Skullgirls IP from Mike Z because he owns Lab Zero. Now, a few months later, the former Lab Zero employees would then start up a co-op studio called Future Club. And they would resume working on Skullgirls with Autumn Games and Hidden Variable. So almost the same people that worked at Lab Zero minus Mike Z make a new studio and they got jobs again. So they're all happy. They're all good.
Was it ever really explained what the co-op meant though? Like, because like I remember back then we didn't really understand that. I
No.
still don't get it, man.
Yeah.
I was assuming that it seems like everybody has a share in the studio, or
Something
didn't really make
along
any
those
sense to me,
lines.
honestly. Even when they read what they wrote about it, because I think they did try to explain it, but it didn't really make much sense to me.
No.
Yeah,
I don't know. It does seem like they all have some sort of share, but they do have, it does seem like they have a CFO of some kind. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works over
yeah.
there.
Random side note, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
I just thought about that because I remember we mentioned that.
Yeah. Episode 8 of FGC Hollywood.
Yeah.
You can check it out there.
Yeah.
So shortly after Future Club assumed the development of Skullgirls, Mike Z's absence was definitely noticed. And I think you were still kind of playing the game at that point. So you could attest to
Yeah,
this. The
yeah,
game ran
man.
into some bugs, man.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened, man. It was like eating inputs. Inputs were being eaten. That was a common complaint. The netcode was, I don't know how that netcode just, it started not going as good. There's a couple more other like actual visual bugs and gameplay bugs that started to happen. Yeah, I don't know what happened, man. I would think that it was just kind of left there and they didn't really have to mess with it. So it's like,
Yep.
but I don't know. Yeah, it started having some issues, man.
A lot of issues. There was one where somebody was playing a 2v1 and the one guy kills off a character and then the game won't move to the next character because there was some sort of
Yeah,
glitch or whatever. So they're just stuck in limbo and they can't
yeah.
fight. You mentioned the netcode. You know what's crazy about the netcode? Mike Z, right before this whole ordeal, souped up the rollback.
Yeah, he made it a lot better, dude. I forgot to mention, man, whenever we talk about how good the netcode is, it's really good. Like, I was playing one of the best top Skullgirls players from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of like some annoying rollback issues that always ends in me getting my ass beat,
Right.
it worked well. I played against Pen and it was really well, dude. Smoked the hell out of me though. Damn, but
Who'd he
it was
play?
really good. He plays Miss Fortune, Annie, and Robo Fortune. Yeah,
Interesting.
really odd team, but man, it's going to be interesting because he's going to be like in combo breaker. So it should be interesting on how far he gets with that team. It's a really different team.
Not to go off too much on a tangent, but have you been seeing this little Skullgirls copy pasta that's happening with like, there's like, I will not play Skullgirls anymore until they remove Peacock from the game. You cannot play.
Dude, I think that's actually like a complaint with a lot of the players. I do not like how they gone about balancing more of the characters. They nerfed Annie recently. They nerfed I think they buffed Eliza, they buffed Robo Fortune, and they did nerf Peacock. And like anytime they nerf or touch Peacock, I'm just like, she's fine. Like that's what always the only thing I've always had an issue with Peacock is that she could just like do like crazy meter dump, get like really easy ass damage. But outside of that, they have definitely nerfed her in some, I won't say crazy ways, but she's nerfed. A lot of people just don't like fighting Peacock though, because she's just really, really good.
Just full screen zoning from just
and she could bully you up close too. So like, but I don't know, I've accepted that. Like it's also kind of like game. I mean, she's been like that for years. They nerf Cerebella in the worst way possible. That upsets me still. I'm like, I just can't. Every time I'm just like, why would they take away my favorite? It is my favorite button in any fighting game. The clap. She jumps up. She can literally do an instant overhead clap, and it was like they could have just made it like less negative, but it was plus, and it was godlike, man. Oh my god, it was dummy stupid. I love that, but they took it away. I don't like that at all. Submit now. I was like, she had that for like 5-8 years, bro. How you gonna take? That's like taking away my arm after like 8 years of it.
Yeah, that's rough, and that was definitely one of the things that happened. So we already mentioned, the online netcode or the netcode, suffering, balancing issues. Cerebella. I remember you talking about Cerebella way back then when they assumed development, and you're like, what the fuck?
One of even the top player, Triv, was like, yo, bring back Cerebella's overhead, man. But a lot of people were like, nah, F that. I don't want to deal with that. I'm like, of course you don't. But I think it was like I think it's one of the big reasons as to why Sage doesn't even use Cerebella anymore too. He kind of like dropped her too in a way, man. So it was really helpful. It's a really good button, but
Yeah. Well, they've made some weird decisions for sure. The
Yeah.
biggest one though that I remember you and I were talking about, and the reason why this was so big at the time because Grand Blue Versus season 2 came out. And you remember how much shit we gave Grand Blue Versus for $35 season 2 pass?
Oh man. Yeah.
And then what happened once Future Club assumed development of Skullgirls? The game never went on sale, right? You could get the game almost on a random day. You could get it for like $4.99, right? Skullgirls Second Encore, you could get it for like $4.99, maybe $9.99 if there's no sale going on. But when they assumed the development, never on sale, full price, and then they started doing the season pass stuff. The season pass was what, $35, and each character was $10 a piece.
Yeah, I think I saw the game get on a sale at that time. It's probably gone on a lot more sales as of now, but I think I saw it maybe get like in one sale. But yeah, that game was like always on a sale.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the characters were still, they did add a season pass sale every once in a while, but yeah, man, that's way too expensive, man.
Yeah.
$10 characters, and I think the full was like 35.
Yeah. And when Mike Z was a part of Lab Zero and he was developing this game, the game was so cheap. You always had that saying. It was like the game is literally cheaper than a bag of sand.
It is. It actually is.
Yeah. But not anymore. Like they didn't hike the price up, but they would never hike it down. So or drop it down. So
it's the new DLC that kind of bumps up the price, and I don't know why they're being sold so high. I do understand that at the point when they were making stuff for the game, they weren't making any money for it. Like Mike Z and stuff like that, he wasn't making really any cash. So
yeah.
could be that he was just kind of just doing it on the side. I think that's what it was really for the longest time. He was just kind of doing it on the side, and now they were like, "Yo, we can make new characters for this game, but we need the bread."
Yeah, there's a great quote from you on episode 1 of FGC Hollywood, and you said,
"Wow, man, you went through the files, bro,
I
the
did,
archives."
I did, because I wanted to do some research on this topic. You said, "Man, I don't think Skullgirls is gonna do well because I think Mike Z is the only one that cares about this game." So people should check that out because, man, you see the future of this game. It's kind of crazy. You know, we were talking about this in September of 2020 or whatever, and now it's April of 2022, and you see what has transpired, and you're like, man, is this game really in much in better hands with Future Club than it was with Lab Zero?
I don't know, man. I will say I can't answer that. I can't say that it's good in the competitive scene because now there's been so much more big tournaments.
Yeah.
The Skullgirls players, which I don't understand why, but they finally created their own kind of like.
They have a circuit now.
Major. Yeah. They have a circuit, which they've had one before from people in the community, but they had a circuit now, the Skullgirls Championship Series. And then just recently they had Mixed Masters, which was something I think Sage worked on with a couple of other people in the community. So I was like, yo, like, that's what I felt like Melty Blood was doing. Them boys was hitting up majors in their bathrooms.
Right.
The Skullgirls players didn't show up for this type of stuff. It's like, y'all, they got comfortable with the godlike internet or something of the netcoder. But yeah, I would say in a way it's because there's more money now. There's championship series. There's more characters. But then in a way, there's that other part where it's like gameplay. I don't like that they nerfed Cerberus. So it's like that's gonna always be like the crux of big part of it all, man.
Do you think
some things?
Do you think it's a little more corporate now, just from a feeling sense?
I'm not too sure, man. Because like I know that the guy working on mostly the design stuff does talk to the community pretty often. So I don't know. You could say that it's not as much, but I don't know. I can't really say. It feels kind of like the same. I almost want to say.
Okay.
Man. It feels kind of the same. The fact of the price changes have. Maybe you can say it feels more of a corporate entity because they're putting these higher prices on the line. And like, season passes, I already hate those things to begin with. I'm like, where's my season pass to Busch Gardens? You know what I'm saying? So like they're putting out these season passes, but I don't really know what the characters are going to be. I don't know if I'm going to like the characters. I want to spend.
You're 0 for 2 so far. 0 for 2?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 new characters. I'm
Yeah.
not buying those characters,
Yeah.
man. I don't think I'll probably buy any character afterwards. I'm probably just gonna be like, they're kind of annoying.
What's the next one? It's
Black Dahlia.
Black
I think that's her
Dahlia.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I don't really like how they I don't like the new characters, man. The 2 new characters. I know a lot of people really like them, but I kind of don't like how they function. Like
mhm.
just recently, they give her a big nerf, stuff like that, a pretty sizable nerf, and then she's still just annoying. Like I don't know, and I know Beowulf is annoying. Like he's probably one of the most annoying, but
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like I there was something that Mike Z said that always kind of stuck to what I think of, and I think they new characters still kind of follow that design philosophy. But it was something along the lines where he said, "I always wanted to make sure every character can do something against any other character at the worst situation possible,"
Mm,
which I think is something not a lot of devs. I
man,
mean, I would say 99% of them ain't doing that crap. So with
man.
fighting games, like it's like okay,
I,
like
I love
Ryu
hearing shit
against
like
such
that,
and such.
dude.
Yeah, yeah, because it would be like Ryu against such and such, and it's like okay, and then you ask the dude like the high level. These dudes are 2 high level players, and they ask him, "What am I supposed to do against that?" And he's like, "You gotta hold it."
Hmm.
I'm like,
Yep.
"Bro, that's terrible."
Here's another Pringle quote that I was listening to episode 1 of Hollywood. You brought that up again with Mike Z. He was like, he's commentating a tournament and Squiggly kills a character. And then the next character, she charges in between rounds. And Mike Z's like, wait a second. She's not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah. That was during like a combo breaker, and he was like, "Whoa, she shouldn't be able to do that." And he, and that was funny that he noticed that.
Yeah.
Because afterwards she can't do it no more because that's cheap as hell.
Yeah. Because I remember
really cheap.
you said it's like, man, she could just charge in between rounds and come in and grab you. Like you pull.
Yeah, it was really cheap, and I'm glad they fixed that. So yeah, and I guess one thing is that now, because the way the current lead dev works on is like he really relies. I feel like he relies on it. Maybe not too much.
Mhm.
He does make things, of course, his own decision, but he does rely on community output. While Mike Z was like, he was that I'm gonna do it my way.
He's a Marvel head, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I kind of like that approach to this stuff too, though, because I like the community output. But it's just like sometimes it's not very helpful, man.
They don't
Like,
know
you're
what
just
they're
gonna
fucking talking about sometimes. I mean,
yeah, and even when they do, it's like I don't know, man. I just don't like too much community
yeah.
output.
Have
I
your
feel
own
like
vision.
it's their thing. Let them see what they see as fit. Sometimes I feel like it because it does make things more interesting. But community output is good in terms of like design bugs and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
so much design balance decision, I don't really like too much of.
You think the community took Bella's clap away?
Yeah, somebody did. I don't know who did.
Somebody
man.
complained. It was like, this shit's too fast.
Somebody complained too much about that clap to take it away because she had that for God knows how long, and like everybody was fine with it. Like, I mean, of course, the people that don't like Bella was not cool with it.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I mean, dude, like she has another overhead, which is like the elbow, but like what happens is that it's kind of like kind of inconsistent with how you catch people sometimes when you use the elbow, and it causes like they buff that move, but even then people I feel like people don't really like to use it as much. It's I don't know, man, it's not better than the clap, dog. It just isn't. It doesn't feel, and because they nerfed that, nobody even uses the button as much anymore. It just crushes lows, but it's like I'm not gonna really use that. I just keep like throwing them or something.
Yeah, it was a satisfying button. I would use it sometimes.
Yeah, it was. You can mash it on people.
Yeah, you could.
I love that button, dude.
Yeah. So that's what happened after they assumed position, a Future Club that is, a Skullgirls. So then the last 2 years, you have Mike Z kept super low profile on the internet, right? He didn't make any public appearances of any kind and removed his presence from social media, especially Twitter. He pretty much got ostracized from the FGC as a whole. The only thing that he did get credit for during that time was helping Team French Caliburst put rollback in Guilty Gear X or in Plus R. And after they got the green light from ArcSys. But then afterwards, ArcSys was just like, well, Mike Z has to like put out a statement or whatever. And I think he was like, what? Fuck that or whatever. Like, I don't know. It was weird. But anyway, he helped Caliburst put that rollback in.
I was thinking they fired him, man. They kicked him out. Yeah, I think they fired him, didn't they? They let him go because the stuff that they heard, they let him go because they didn't want to be affiliated with him. so they let him go.
weren't they? I thought they were already done though, putting rollback in.
Yeah, they were done. Yeah. After they used his ass, they were like, "All right, we're done with you."
Yeah. I think what happened was like he was supposed to like put out a statement, and then he could have stayed and helped Caliburst work on other things. But I think he only cares for Plus R, so he was like, "Nah." He's like, "I'm not doing
he probably does. Yeah, he really does care for that game, anyways.
So that's what happened the last 2 years. But he kept a really low profile. Which, by the way, all that shit happened. So he was on my podcast, I think, in May of 2020, and then all that shit happened. He was on TMP in May. And then all that shit happened in July and August. And I was like, damn,
that was in May.
The TMP curse. Yeah. I had such a curse with TMP. Koei came on, turned to VTuber Koei. I had Stumblebee on, didn't make a video for like a year. Mike Z gets canceled. Yeah, it was rough. But now current day. So this happened earlier this week where Mike Z's court documents, 207 total, but 34 are legal and the rest are just evidence and screenshots of what transpired. So all of those are now public knowledge. How did Kappa get those? Amazing. Kappa just finds shit.
I don't know. I was trying to find that out too, dude, because like our fighters got it, but then like they got it from our Kappa. So I was like,
yeah,
where did he post these? Where did they get these?
Yeah,
man?
Kappa, the true journalist of the FGC.
Yeah.
So before we even start talking about all this stuff, you mentioned the fact that you noticed the fact that people were like posting this stuff on online sources, and then it was getting removed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, supposedly they, I think they posted in a couple of subreddits. Maybe they posted on Skullgirls, but I don't have any proof of that one. But I think they did post it on our fighters, and then it got like deleted. I could be wrong about that, as of course, but it's now on there, so it doesn't really matter if I'm right or wrong. But yeah, I think anybody that was mentioning this was just like, it would just get deleted. And like our Kappa was mentioning that they could be lying, but I don't think there's any reason for them to lie about this. But they were saying, yeah, man, these mods are just deleting this post, man. We're just gonna, and then our Kappa pinned it on their thing.
Shout out to Kappa.
Sucks, man. It sucks because we have to use our Kappa, and that already throws the validity of what we're gonna say. But it's like, hey, man, as much as people don't like him, at least they're just honest dicks. I mean, like they're just low tier guys, all of them.
Right, all of them. They're savages over there, but.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad that they're putting it out there and they're putting it out on the surface so people can actually see. There's a lot of stuff happening here, and I know people love to bury. And this is really another theme that I want to talk about is like the FGC loves to bury fools. You and I were talking about this back when Gutex was getting into a mess and stuff, and we were like, man. And remember, PogChamp got removed from Twitch, and we were like,
sad time.
I was like, man, and then you have like people like L.I. Joe be like, hey, you want to use my face for PogChamp? I was like, aren't you guys like friends? Like, go
Even if you aren't friends, that was kind of fast, though.
I was like, is nobody gonna like ring up Gutex and be like, hey man, are you good? I need to talk to somebody. Like, where's everybody? Like, aren't you guys boys? I was like, what happened here? So the FGC loves to bury people, and Mike Z, man, I think he got the worst of it, man.
Not one post saying, "Hey, we tried reaching out to Gutex. Homeboy's gone."
Yeah. And this was still when Mike was, on his Ronin walk or whatever he was doing.
Oh man.
So he wasn't around, but everybody else, they canceled Gutex right away, and they canceled Mike right away as well. So seems like they have any sort of dirt on you, even if it's true, if it's false, they'll run with it. They'll run with it right away, and that's what happened in 2020. Now we're 2 years later. Let's read what actually happened. So we have 207 total documents, but I'm just going to go through the cliff notes and, thank you to R Kappa, there's a guy who actually, he's like, I read all of it. So here are the cliff notes. Now I didn't read all 34 legal documents, but I read some of them. And so I added my own notes into the cliff notes that were on R Kappa, and feel free to interject. I'll read this, but if you got anything to say, just say, hey, Mac. So
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This is the case is against two of the former Lab Zero employees, and I guess I omitted their names, but like whatever. It's the two. I'm sure you could guess their names. It's one of the animators, and they're both in that co-op studio right now. So And I think there's only like 3 female employees in Future Club, so you got a pretty good chance of finding out who they are.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's Lab Zero against those 2 employees, and this was filed on April 1st, 2021, and it was not an April Fool's joke. The hearing
Dude.
was on October 20th, 2021. The trial date is slated for November 7th of 2022, so it's coming up in about 7 months. In these documents, we learned a lot, but like I said, here are the cliff notes. To start, Mike, he made his case right away, and he provided proof of his clinical diagnosis and life with autism spectrum disorder, which I don't think that was a secret in the FGC. Everybody knew Mike had some sort of autism spectrum type of deal. Like I think he's made it known publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And people were always saying, oh, he's just awkward. He's just awkward when he's talked about this. And I spoke to Mike Z for like 2 hours about fighting games. I could tell that he was awkward, but I never felt at any point when talking to him that he was so awkward that he made me feel uncomfortable. And if anything, I was just like, this dude is fascinating, because if you get him talking about fighting games, like what you just said, where you're just like, I want a character to have an answer against any other character in the worst situation, that shit blows my mind. I'm like, I couldn't think of that.
Yeah, it is, dude. That's like Giga Brain right there.
Yeah. So when he was talking to me about Marvel and KI and Skullgirls and TFH, and he was, bringing up all these concepts, I was like, this is fascinating to me. As a fighting game nerd, I was just like, I was having a good time just listening. I was kicking back. I was like, you do you, Mike. And the beginning was a little awkward, but that's because, when you have 2 strangers talk on the mic, it's just going to be like that. So I understand what he meant with having social situations be a little more awkward to him and, a little foreign. But I thought if you get him on track talking about things he's comfortable about, man, he's really fun to listen to. So
I think I sometimes think that's probably some of the case with some people with the spectrum. It is a spectrum too. That's one thing I see people say. It's like, well, I have autism. I don't do that. I'm like, well, man, it is a spectrum. Like everybody different,
Yep. He's high functioning, as they say, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like I had a friend that was like that, and he made a funny joke, and then he's like, "You're not mad at me." He like, after he made the funny joke and we laughed, he's like, "You weren't mad at me or anything." I'm like, "No, man, I don't give a damn, man." And he really looked at me like because he was like, "I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to not be friends." I was like, "Whoa, man, chill. We've been hanging out for months." But that's what I said. It's a spectrum. So
what was the joke? I can't breathe.
I can't really remember. Nah, it was an actual funny race joke though. It was about black people. It was a good movie joke though. But
okay.
I don't care about anything like that. I don't give a damn. Black, blue, white, all the same, right. Man. But that spectrum thing. And one thing I learned about them is that I feel like sometimes is that depending on who incites the conversation, kind of just follow too. So if you're, and then they kind of try to take up what cue you're saying or try to, because they got to figure that out.
Yeah.
I realize that a lot of times they're kind of following conversations, not necessarily making them, but could be wrong about that. But that's something I just kind of noticed with being around someone like that and kind of noticing the conversations with, like, of course, he could be cutting too much of conversations in the evidence and stuff like that or whatever he provided, but it's just something I kind of noticed, like depending on if they incite the conversation, they'll follow through. Like you could have been like, yeah, man, let's talk about shoes, and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna talk about shoes, and instead of another person like, no, man, I don't know about no damn shoes. Right. So
I mean, that makes sense because you have Bunny initiating a conversation about lewd stuff, and he kept it going with there. When I talked to him, I initiated a conversation about fighting game development, and he talked about that. So that makes sense to me. Now, Mike, after he spoke about his autism spectrum disorder, he provided countless of receipts demonstrating that type of conversations he's had with the 2 female employees at Lab Zero over the years, often involving lewd or sexually explicit subjects, pointing out the boundaries he believed were appropriate based on the types of conversations he held with them. So there are a lot of messages that you could tell were, if not initiated, were contributed to the whole topic that they were talking about. So a lot of it has to do with just grown up talk, sex, life, relationships, things that, aren't out of boundaries if you have 2 consenting adults. So I just felt that you can't really say anything about Mike when you have other people talking like that, because unless he forged those receipts, those are things that you would have two people comfortable with that subject to talk about in a, in quite length of conversation and a detail. So he had a lot of support and evidence for those type of conversations with those two specific employees. Those two employees are shown through screenshots to clearly support him through the whole Bunny incident. And they both believe that he was absolutely roped into a lewd discussion while acknowledging his difficulties with social interaction. So there's also a conversation about that. That's important because after bad publicity from the whole Bunny situation, one of the female employees at Lab Zero who initially showed support for Mike proceeded to open a private Slack channel for all except Mike and began discussing avenues to remove Mike or how to exit the company themselves and create a new company without severing ties with their arrangements made with their publisher Focus. So it was just bad PR. So the reason why that's important is because initially, they showed him support and they were like, hey, this sucks, but I think we think you got got by a bunny. And then they went 180. So they were like, well, actually, this is not looking good on us as a company. So they start working behind closed doors and we're like, how do we get this guy out of here? Or how do we take over the whole company? But the whole not tethering any ties with Focus is big because it has to do with money at the end of the day, and they don't want to lose that. So after that, it gets a little complicated because it has to do with the financial department ultimately, and the evidence points out that the whole situation of trying to slander Mike and take him over has to do and is driven by financial concerns. Things like equity sharing, pay, distribution, all that. It seems to be the main motivator of why they were trying to out Mike. Not so much his behavior in the office, quote unquote. Now, the two female employees would then lie to Mike, telling him that Focus would cancel their project if Mike didn't exist. Oh, man.
Yeah. That was what bugged me the most, man.
So they were telling him, and he believed them initially, that Focus would basically pull the funding if he didn't exit Lab Zero. But in a meeting that must have been an awkward ass meeting because Mike, the two female employees, and Focus had a meeting about it, and the two female employees were put on the spot, and it was revealed that Focus never made that stipulation. They were like, that's not what we said at all. So that's when Mike lawyered up, right? He got a lawyer, and this is how this whole thing started.
I think that's also part of it, but maybe it was when he lawyered up, but he also mentioned how no editing or no deleting of anything in the Slack channels. That way, he can see.
Yeah. So it's the Slack channel when it was started by, one of the specific employees, and they said it right away. It's like, this is going to get nuked eventually, but this is what we're going to use to try and out Mike. And they were basically conspiring in this little private channel without him to try to get him out of there. And they also had meetings with him where they conspired, was like, we're going to talk to Mike and have a meeting and just bash him. And from the documents, he said that he ended up crying in that meeting because of, how the fact that they were just, going after him on a personal level, and he felt betrayed. And it's just a lot of bad shit. I mean, if you want to get into all the Slack messages and everything, I think it's really hurtful. I think, man, if you're going to have quote unquote friends like that, who needs enemies, man? I mean, that's, and I just felt that the two parties at the top, the two female employees, were really conniving and scheming, and they manipulated the rest of the people that were working there to just try to get Mike. And it was all for money, really. Now, ultimately, the scheming resulted in Lab Zero losing a lot of money, right? A lot of money, because there was an agreed upon stipend to be given to Lab Zero, but it was pulled because Lab Zero no longer had the staff to do any of the agreed upon work. So they literally couldn't fulfill contracts. So because it didn't have the staff, the two female employees, or rather because it didn't have the staff, they couldn't, get the stipend. And the two female employees, they coordinated the various steps that would result in the exodus, including using harassment as the catalyst, the excuse to get people out of Lab Zero, and they use it as a smokescreen almost. So that is so dirty, man. I mean, they literally took away his people so he wouldn't get money, and now he's in debt, right? Now he's literally in debt. So there's a lot to unpack here. We don't, I mean, we would spend way more time talking about this if we went over every single line he wrote there, right?
Yeah.
But what do you make of this? I know back then, and you can check the tapes. That's the nice part about having Hollywood out there.
Yeah, right.
You can check the tapes. You never really changed gears. You were always like, man, I don't know if all that shit is really what they're saying.
I'm still under the air of suspicion, of course, because so here we go. One thing I want to mention is I did actually look up. It's funny because someone in our copy even put like case files and like actual legal case files.
Shout out to the
website. I didn't understand any of that. I didn't look too into it, but I did read the whole Mike document. But like one thing I noticed is that the way it kind of goes is that they took this to a judge, this case, and then the judge realized, I could be wrong, and it's not verbatim because I can't remember. It's been already like 2 weeks since this happened or something. It was a judge said that the amount of information given, it doesn't seem like this is an actual sexual harassment case. More so, this sounds like employees upset that they didn't get paid. And so this is when they decided to let Mike follow through with his side of the story. If you think about it, there's not any much public. It's really hard to tell because a lot of the things they said that they didn't like about Mike, I feel like people didn't really give examples. And some of the examples kind of left me in an air of suspicion a lot of times. It was never an outright clear-cut example. It was more like he does these things, he makes me feel inappropriate, or he says things that are inappropriate, and he makes me feel uncomfortable.
One girl literally said he's being awkward. And I was like, the fuck, you get canceled now for being awkward?
Yeah, and then on that same document, he wrote of an interaction he had with somebody. Somebody wrote an interaction, and it was a girl that she couldn't go to. I think she was gonna quit fighting games altogether, and Mike actually brought her the ticket to get to I think it was Combo Breaker, and he basically shared the room with her. He didn't do anything wrong. The girl said, "I didn't feel any bit uncomfortable. He was nice all the way through." So I guess that's also just like a reference point to say to defend himself. I think what is I guess because I want to try going from the beginning in this case because it's very interesting because in the beginning it seems like his friends, they did support him when the Bunny incident happened, but then there's not necessarily, I guess this is the problem too, because Mike is showing it on his side of things. Isn't necessarily showing anything saying what triggered them to decide, oh, we got to kick this motherfucker out, man. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't necessarily any trigger, but if we go based off the only person presenting any information, which is Mike, it almost is as if they were piggybacking off the negative situation that he was in already, which would essentially make it easier to overthrow him. Because think about it this way. I've never heard of any, well, maybe I'm not, I don't know, but I've not heard of any situation where the employees can just cook the dude out of his job, out of the boss's job. I don't see employees cooking Jeff Bezos. This motherfucker is going to be Jeff Bezos.
Look at Blizzard. They can't get that dude out of there.
You can't kick him out. And that's one thing that kind of threw me off. I was like, they said it in that Slack channel, which I do want to say, side note, why the hell would you discuss all of these things when somebody can actually see? And they should have made their own little channel. It could have been something completely different program, but these knuckleheads just did it all out there. And
I think they got confident. I think they thought they could get away with it. I mean, they really thought they could just drag this dude's name in the mud, and they were like, yeah, why not?
And with no rebuttal. Even if Mike is wrong in all of this, you cannot expect this to be, this got to be fair play. The dude, someone's got to get, if both of them get burned, both of them get burned. But it can't just be, we're going to do all of this with even the messed up things we did and not get any repercussions from the public eye. That's ridiculous.
Crazy.
So, yeah, man. So the Slack channels being there is bad. And it's weird because I don't know what could have triggered this, but there's a part of me that's kind of sad about this because it looks like they were really friends, man. You know what I'm saying? Like they were really good friends. I want to say that it is weird at the conversations they would have. Like I don't know why you would talk to I don't talk to anybody about that type of stuff really, unless it's someone really close. I don't go around and be like, yo, my period. I mean, like I know
Yeah.
women, they might do that, but it's kind of something you do probably with like I don't know, man. People with same sex or, and it's not out of the weird context because, like, reading those conversations, they were just kind of on the odd side of things. I mean, even I
Not with
have odd.
coworkers for sure.
Yeah, yeah, man. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you're really close, they might have thought themselves as really good friends, but still, it's a working environment. I don't talk about that type of stuff. I don't talk about the stuff they talk about all kinds of weird crap, but not to say I don't, but like it's still like just I would talk about that maybe up close, face to face with people, stuff
Yeah.
like that, or one on one, and But so it's sad though because it's like it looks like they were really good friends, and then like whatever happened after that bunny incident made them just kind of like flip.
Don't you think it was the outside pressure of all the bunny simps, trying to come after Mike, Lab Zero looking really bad, and maybe they were feeling pressure, like, man, this is looking really bad
It
on us.
could be. I mean, it could definitely be along that line, and the fact that like, I mean, they were supporting him, but it definitely could be because sometimes you could see something and be like, man, wait a minute, maybe he isn't that good
Hmm.
because there's been so many like even players of the game were saying, nah, I just nah his responsibility. I mean, his interaction with people, nope. And then on the other side, it's like publicly, from what I've seen that dude hug Sonic Fox, man. And it was like a loving hug. Or I've seen him talk to people and chat with people in those social interactions. But of course, it could be different in a working environment.
Yeah.
It makes me really suspicious, man. Like on the real. Then you go to later down the line where they start kind of like talking about it in their little private group about how they just want to overthrow him, man. Hey, man, I'll tell you what. Hey, we all know OJ did it. We
Right.
can't lie. OJ is God at football. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. So you
the juice is loose.
he's got a hell of a golf swing.
Yeah.
You ever see his Twitter account? Because
Oh, nah, man.
dude, that dude, even at like 70, he's so charismatic, and like his Twitter account is like two things where
Yeah.
he'll say some slick shit, and then he'll like swing a golf club, and the comments is either like "Go get him, Juice," or it's just like "You're a murderer." I love his Twitter account just to look at the replies.
Dude, there was a joke from Jared Carmichael where he was like, talents beats morality or morals, because it's like
Yeah,
you can do something wrong, and then
yeah,
then MJ or Michael Jackson could be like, he puts out another hit
yeah.
ass album, and then he touches kids, and then he's like another hit album, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh man,
That sounds like some Dave Chappelle type joke.
yeah, yeah. Jared Carmichael, man, funny comedian, dude.
Yeah.
You gotta check him out.
Check out
But,
Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis killed a dude. He's still
oh my god,
he's still
DC, yeah,
talking about
exactly.
football on NBC or whatever.
So yeah, um, well, not to say that. I mean, I'm just saying that as like it's just funny because that's what they basically because they're trying because in a way it feels like they took away his game. I mean, it's not his; it is a group effort, and he would even say it on multiple occasions. I'm not the one that just worked on this. It was multiple people.
Yeah.
He would always correct people on that one, always, dude. So it was always kind of weird on that where it's like it's almost feels like they just took it away from the guy. You know what I'm saying?
First episode of She's Hollywood, you said the same thing, by the way.
It all comes full circle,
Yeah.
dude.
But you're right. No, he always included, saying, we worked on this, we did this, we fixed that. So, yeah, he was definitely, I think, publicly thinking about themselves as a team as opposed to an individual. But let's be honest, I do think that, I guess I don't know. I wasn't in that room, but it's just, I have a feeling that Mike did a lot of heavy lifting, with
Oh
Skullgirls.
yeah, man. I mean, he made the Z engine itself. So he's
Yeah.
I mean, I won't say he'll say that as his humble thing because that's kind of also what you don't make it all yourself. But let's be honest, you probably did most of the work. I mean, he created the engine of which the game exists in. So back to what I'm saying. So it looked like they were friends, and then afterwards there was some weird trigger that made them not want to really be with him. And maybe it was his actions, but they didn't really specifically say anything of which he did. Like it's not like, oh, this guy grabbed my ass at like
Mhm.
late night Tuesday. That's what usually people do when they hate somebody or they really don't like him. They'll talk about the things they did that pisses them off.
Yeah.
It's mostly just inappropriate things. And then in that same situation, to go down later down the line, and then they you see them like saying, "Man, we should just get any dev. Maybe we can even hire him as a contractor or something. We just got to get him out, man. We'll even get somebody from such and such studio to work on the game. We just
Yeah.
need another dev or something like that." And then it just gets to that point where they do the focus meeting, which is the one that, like, you could take everything you can from this and be like, nah, I don't agree with anything we're saying. But the fact of the matter is, they are liars. They lied to Mike Z straight to the dude's face, I guess through a Slack channel. But they told him, yo, he was supposed to have a meeting with Focus. That's the publisher and stuff like that. And it was all about a specific, I believe it was all about finance and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And they were like, oh, yeah, no. They talked to the Focus group, had their meeting, and then Mike was like, "Oh, I didn't know there was a meeting." A part of me is like, "How do you didn't know there was a
Yeah.
meeting, dog?" Like, you know what I'm saying? But they still did the meeting without the guy. And like, even if he didn't know, which is probably his responsibility to know that, depending on who works his schedule, whatever the hell.
Right.
But part that bugs me so much is that they said that Focus told him, "Hey, if we only have it's either it's two options, right? It was basically you either leave
Yep.
or no, I think that was it, man. That was they gave him an ultimatum.
Yep. Pretty
It was
much.
like you have to you either have to, so we can get this the finances in check and sort
Mhm.
it out. You're gonna have to leave, Mike." And then he was like, "Oh, what? I wasn't too sure about that." And then he, like you mentioned earlier in the notes, this dude talks to Focus, and they were like, "No, we didn't say anything
Yep.
about you leaving, Mike. If anything, we want to make these decisions when you're around, man." And then that was basically the straw that broke the camel's hump. I was like, okay, they're liars, dude. Like they just straight up lied to the man about, like, basically trying to take the game from him or the studio. Like, come
His
on, man, you
life,
can't
dude.
take that. Yeah, man. That's his livelihood. Fighting games is now kind of like his livelihood. Of course, he worked on other games, but it's like, come on, dude. Like, part of me, that's why part of me is like, why didn't you guys, like, you could have just left. Like, if you didn't like the environment. And I know they mentioned it too. They were like, "Man, I don't think I could get." I think they said something about not having to get another job or something like that. But it's
Mhm.
still like, depending on what time it is, it doesn't matter the timeline. Even if it was COVID, dude, like, you still could have found another job. You still could have just left, man. I mean, if it was that bad, there's nothing holding you on. As a man that is literally kind of hoisted onto a situation that he cannot really move away from, you can move, man. A lot of
Yeah.
those people, it sounded like they could have just left, man. Like, I guess maybe there must be some sort of stipulation or a contract of some sort. That's what really bugs me. And then you notice, like, it seems like Mike is just trying to, like, he's trying to cook him, man, because they cooked him pretty bad. It seems like, I will say, in that 207-page document, it gets kind of stupid because he adds like random pictures at the end, but it's just all filler. He does add a lot of filler, I would say.
Mhm.
Then you also read that because of this coup, in a way, it made it so that Indivisible wasn't going to be an anime anymore.
Yep.
Skullgirls 2 got canned. I don't know how much of that is true, but the guy is saying it. I mean, it may be true, it may not be true, but man, it just really bugs me, man, at the end of the day, because it's like, dude, they just took the game from the guy in a way. I mean, he cannot look at that game, like, you know what I'm saying? There's no way he can look at it the same. And even when people do bad things, you can't really take away the things they done. You can dislike them both ways. It's still theirs, you know what I mean? The motherfucker still made it. I mean, OJ's record is still godlike, no matter how much you hate the motherfucker. You know he killed his wife, but
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
his record is still amazing.
Yeah. It's there's definitely a lot to unfold here. And I think that the double standard too, with the fact that they were trying to use the smoke screen as being like, oh, Mike is
Mhm.
weird. He's talking about sexual themes in the office. Meanwhile, you have one of the artists working on our Patreon lewds in the office while also working on design for Skullgirl characters or whatever. So, and those are just out in the public. So, oh, you can do
Yeah,
this,
and
but
I
you can't
mean,
talk about that.
yeah, that's what I say. Like, it seems like they would incite the conversations too. It went back and forth. It
Yeah.
wasn't just the one-sided thing. And there was even somebody that mentioned, I think it was like a reporter or something in the article that I read. It was a very short article.
Mhm.
It was the one with the judge wanting to let Mike do the information and evidence and all that stuff. And they mentioned about how the reporter, I believe it's a reporter. Let me double check that right quick,
I think it was
just for the
McCaskill,
context of the
right?
show. I don't remember, but it was like basically somebody going to ask the employees that said it would, if it was specific sexual harassment. There wasn't really any sexual
No.
harassment. In fact, they doubled down on what they said, and they're like, "No, we didn't say anything about harassment." But in reality, that's the picture being painted on.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, is it that he's harassing people, or is this motherfucker you don't like his ass? Like,
Right.
that's two different things, man.
It seemed like just a smokescreen because I don't know what kind of financial deal they had with Focus, but to me, it seemed like that, like you said, they don't want to get another job.
Yeah.
It seemed like they had it pretty good with Focus, and they were getting probably paid comfortably enough where like it wasn't worth leaving. So it was easier to try to out Mike and reap the benefit of continuing on working with Focus than it was, you know, just leaving because of whatever, they don't like his ass anymore, or he's holding them back or whatever. But it really seemed like, man, you said cook him, man. They try to like eat this man alive, and
man, they eating his ass.
I just thought it was such a in such poor taste. The other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was the fact that the FGC is so easy to influence these days, and you could say anything about anybody, and they're like, "Fuck Mike Z, he's a piece of shit. He's that. He's that." And it's like, "Oh, word, you know everything that happened there. You were the fly on that wall." So, same thing with Gutex, right? Like, you know, I know Gutex has had a bit more of a public case, but like,
now he's long gone.
yeah, now he's long gone. But even now, like, I don't even know what the dude, like, how bad is the guy really? Like, I just think people don't like his politics at this point. But
yeah,
I just think the FGC sees a candidate to get canceled, and they're like, let's run with this because as long as it ain't me, right? Like, if as long as I'm not taking the heat, let me burn somebody else. You know what what RCAP put in the front was just like, I just thought that shit was funny. He's just like, some guy says a dude literally got canceled for having autism.
So this is, and you know, I just found the article, and this was on News LA, which is, it's a local article. This is contributing editor. How credible it can be. I guess it's up to debate. But one thing it says is that this case is about retaliation by Lab Zero and its sole shareholder is Mike Zamont against two long-term employees who had the temerity to stand up against Mr. Zamont's rampant sexual harassment of Lab Zero's employees, the suit states. Although the suit's allegations focus on the alleged misconduct of Zamont, Lab Zero's lone shareholder, it does not name him as a defendant. Throughout their Lab Zero employment, Zamont subjected plaintiffs to a pervasive campaign of sexual harassment, including frequent unwanted touching, discussion about the size of his private parts, his sex life, and his libido, the suit states. And then I think is somewhere in this article that wasn't necessarily the case.
But was there ever proof of that stuff?
That's the thing. Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah, I mean, I could say anything. I could say whatever I want, but I was like, where are the receipts? That's why I'm kind of siding with Mike here. I mean, I think I was siding with Mike for a long time, but like, this is more so proof in the fact that like he legit has receipts. I don't think he made up the Slack channel because other people could probably say, "Hey, I never said that shit" or whatever, but I don't see people in Future Club standing up being like, "Hey, this is wrong. He's making all this up."
Yeah. Okay. So here we go, man. Here we go. This is where it is. Like I said, this is an article, and it could be wrong, but this is where it's like this last piece. But I want to read the whole part. Sorry.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Although this is, I think, after the Black Lives, which people said it is, and I think it's kind of like a stupid detail to add, but this guy was also donating to BLM and all that stuff. I'll tell you what, I wasn't donating to not a damn person. I'll tell you that, right? But he was doing that, and he was actually pretty attuned with the emotional outcry of all that society stuff. I would.
It's not like that movement is squeaky clean either, but you know, it's for a different topic.
Exactly. It's pretty grimy. But so although Zaman apologized, the incident caused employees of Lab Zero and others in the gaming community to break their silence about harassment they allegedly experienced at his hands, both publicly and privately, the suit states. In the countersuit brought last May 20, Lab Zero alleges that throughout their employment, Cartwright and Esquinazi facilitated conversations with Zaman about sex and related topics, and later publicly mischaracterized those conversations as harassment. Countersuit also alleges the two women began completing a business and discussing recruiting Lab Zero employees. After falsely, and this is in quotes, after falsely accusing Zaman of harassment and making public statements against him, the two employees destroyed Lab Zero's and Zaman's public images, causing Lab Zero to break up and perish, the countersuit states. This is where the last part of it is, the last piece. Two employees alleged that the Lab Zero resignation letter that Cartwright wrote with, I just want to say two employees because their names are too long.
Yeah.
with help involved sexual harassment. Involved sexual harassment, a topic of public interest. But the judge said the letter only referred briefly to sexual harassment and largely dealt with a frustrated employee who talked about her plans to leave the company. They took this legal matter, and the judge saw it and was like, I don't really, it's not adding up.
Yeah.
And then it just sounds like you guys are pissed.
Yep.
This is the article, and this article has no traction. I just Google it, and this was like one of the first articles. I think there might be a second or third link that attaches that, but yeah, this is just one article, and this was from News LA, so it's not. Like I said, it could be questionable, but this is still like a probably a public local one, so it's not like a gamer one or something like that where they cut some
Kotaku not about to write about this shit because it doesn't fit their agenda. It fit their agenda when they were trying to cook Mike Z, but now that it seems like he's being proven innocent in this whole matter, they're like, we're not going to cover this. That's what I was saying with Future Club. You're telling me that if this shit, if all these receipts, if they're all fabricated, if all this is false and Mike Z's making this up, you're telling me Future Club employees aren't going to take a stand of some kind, but instead, in my opinion, what seems to be happening is that whatever pull they have in certain online avenues is that when this surfaces, they try to just shove it under the rug. Nobody saw this. Let's not talk about it. Not put any light to this.
Yeah, and so I just did a better Google search, and I put his actual last name, and you see this local news, KFIM by City News, and it's on the Mike Z countersuit. You also have the same. I guess it's these two articles that actually are stating, yeah, man, it's the same thing I just ended with. Judge says he looks at it, and it only briefly describes sexual harassment, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, this article dropped, was it March 1st? And then the other one's on February 28th. Dude, that's gone to the winds, man. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to see that crap.
It is.
Nobody's going to mention it.
Yeah. So, listen, I think they did him dirty. They did him really dirty. He's in debt.
They lied to him, though. That's for sure.
they lied. In my opinion, I thought that they and the FGC, in my opinion, turned their back on Mike Z. And I was just like, man, we don't know all the facts yet, but
they never liked him, though, man. That's the thing.
I don't know. I think he was an easy target, but I also think that
he was. Yeah.
I think the FGC, and if I consider myself FGC, I can just say but we took 2 years out of this guy's life, man. We took 2 years, and I hope this is vindication, kind of like that GIF from.
Vindication.
I love that GIF, but I hope this is vindication, and I hope Mike Z comes back. I think the community is better with him in it as opposed to him without it. So, last thing I'll say about this is the cancel culture in the FGC. I think it's too easy to cook people. Way too easy. Yeah. You could say, let's say Juna doesn't like me and I'm not really big in the FGC. Juna could be like, man, fuck that guy. He did this. And then everybody would be like, hey, that guy did that. And then whatever. If Sajam wants to get in on it, he'd be like, hey, that guy did that. And now I have not that I have any career or anything, but now I have nothing I can do. Like now I put I put a video and people are like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. And it's like, wait a second. You can't prove that what Juna and Sejam said about me is true, but people are so easy to influence these days. And I can't support that. And it's so sad. It's such a sad case. So I'm just saying, free Mike Z. I don't think he did anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's just sad. It's just a sad case.
I'm looking at it even now. Our copy even posted that same article too. They posted those 2 articles. Like, it's really like, I mean, the fact that he lawyered up kind of shows where he's thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude could either be trying to defend himself, or he could be a person that is like, man, I'm gonna burn them for everything, and I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be out of defense. So, I still err on the side of suspicion, but I'm looking more towards the side of Mike just because of the fact that this guy, I mean, he's going through it the way that you probably should have, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, employees trying to cook him and trying to take his job and the company. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of bugs me when I start up Skullgirls and I see future clubs and I'm like, oh, that's so weird, man. Like, it's a really weird thing. And then I realized that the guy that like really was like, I mean, people weren't talking about Skullgirls that openly, I would say, as much as this guy was. This guy was talking about his thing all the time.
No, he put his heart and soul into it. I mean, of course.
Yeah, man. And like, they just kind of took it in a way.
Grimy.
That's why it always just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. Like, he's not going to be able to ever touch that game no more. And he probably still wants to work on it.
Yeah. He probably sees a lot of shit. He's like, why is that like that? And why'd you do this? Where's Bella's clap?
Yeah, man. It's really weird. And like, I just, it's just kind of odd, more so that like nobody's even really talking about this. And like, this guy he did the long document. Maybe it's because it's on our copper or something like that, but it's got his signature and everything. And, it's definitely him that made that thing.
Yeah. I mean, Kappa apparently is trying to stand for the truth when everybody else is trying to like, silence this.
No, out of all of the people though, man.
Crazy.
Our Kappa really, they would have hung his ass anyways. But now they're like, I just want to know the truth now.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna go into a little bit more.
Oh no, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
So, and one thing I learned is that with a lot of that stuff in 2020 that was happening, was some of it wasn't actually very accurate. A lot of people now, even in that Smash community, a lot of them are coming out and they're like, yo, these people are actually liars, man. And there is a lot more liars than there is, if anything, like a lot of people.
That Zero blow up was bad though.
Yeah, and that was like, and supposedly that was bull crap too.
Really?
That was not, it was not as black and white.
Okay.
Guy supposedly, I mean, I won't lay too long into it because it's a whole long thing.
I mean, you also had Nero and you had a bunch of other people, right?
Yeah, and like a lot of it isn't as black and white, I want to say. But I will just say for the 0-1, that one is definitely not black and white. And he's back. So, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not ever really black and white. It's a lot of moving parts to this stuff. And like, of course, we're not going to know the full truth between what happened with Mike Z and his labs or employees, but based off what we've seen, he's the only one out of these group of people that has shown legitimate freaking evidence.
Yep.
And I've seen other people say, oh no, Mike Z's a dick. And then they show like a tweet or like a piece of him talking to them, and it sounded like he was a dick to them. And he was, but I mean, I don't care. Like, so what? That's not,
you shouldn't get canceled for being a dick. Then half the world would get canceled.
Yeah, exactly, man. He's not touching you inappropriately. He's not doing anything wrong. I mean, not raping you, I guess. I don't want to say that word, but yeah, man, he's not doing like that. He's just being a dick.
Yep.
And that's completely different towards that stuff. So if that article that I read is correct, and if that's like true, then I would definitely like, I'm like, yeah, man, I don't.
Yeah.
Because like, it's like, nah. But the one thing that really bugged me though, mostly is just the fact that it looked like they were friends. And then at some point there was some sort of weird trigger that caused them to just dislike this guy. And it was multiple of them that started You know what's funny is when we find something we don't like about somebody, we can just keep picking at them. I don't like that motherfucker's nose. I don't like the motherfucker's smile. I don't like the motherfucker how he talks, his speech, everything about his ass. I don't like his skin color. I'm like, you could just keep picking at that. And you notice it turns into this decline. You know what I'm saying? Of like, yeah, we'll help Mike. We respect him. We're friends. And then it just starts getting worse as the days go by. And then it's like, nah, this guy, man, we need to get rid of. And then it's like, why would you do all that on a Slack channel that he can see? Then they even know they can't delete it, and they know Mike can see it. That's why I'm like, why would you even use that anymore? Why wouldn't you just go somewhere else? Man, that's like stupid, dude. Like that's like I don't care what. That's just retarded.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just like arrogance or the fact that they didn't think they were going to get caught, or I don't know. To me, it seems like money got in the way. To be honest, I think money was the catalyst.
I mean, money is a big thing. I mean, that's what we as humans are very selfish. We're like, we're devotes in greed, man. You know what I'm saying? Like we are like, that is our thing. So seeing that, I mean, it's just, that could be the biggest catalyst of it all. Like it's just money. Maybe they get pissed off. We doing Skullgirls work. We ain't getting paid, man. F you, Mike, man. I want my money, dog. You know what I'm saying? So it could be, I mean, but I would have appreciated if that was just the case. You know what I'm saying? If they were just saying, yeah, we don't like this guy, he doesn't pay us. Like, okay, you know, that would have been a lot more respectable. Then we could all just be like, Mike's he's a dick because he doesn't pay his employees. But there's a difference between not paying employees and touching them inappropriately.
Oh yeah.
That's different, man. Like that's like, one is you're a bad boss. The other is you're a horrible human being.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're unredeemable anywhere. Like this dude, like, yeah, they're not gonna want to work with his ass anywhere because his name is like everywhere. So it's like,
yeah. Two more things and we can get out of here. The first one is more like a joke. Did you see the fact that Clayton saw this as an opportunity? He's like, oh, I could start suing people.
Maybe I can do something like that. It's like, you know, I got a lot of dirt on these dudes. I'm like, yo, we need to see the Clayton floodgates open.
Yo, man. I want the Clayton tapes.
Bro, I want the archive. This motherfucker got library. It ain't even tapes. It's too big for tapes. He got a library. He got A through Z up in there, man.
Yeah, I can't wait for the R when he gets the Ruffelmonger.
Oh, dude, I read into that too, and I'm like, whoa, man, the stuff Clayton has, and then he. Yeah, dude.
I want to talk to him. I want to get him on here. I want to talk to Clayton. He's interesting.
Got to get Clayton on this, man.
And so one last thing that I'll say is that, man, I hope so. The trial date is in November, right? And if this all proves to be true, I want two things to come out of this. One, I would like Mike Z to get work again in the FGC. I think him working on a fighting game makes any fighting game better, right? So whether it's an existing one or a new project, I hope that happens. And two, I just hope, man, they left him in a lot of debt, thousands of dollars of debt.
Supposedly the TLDR said like 1.5 million or something like that.
Was it that much?
200 grand? Yeah, it was some ridiculous number. I could be wrong, but it was a huge number.
Yeah,
they left his ass in debt supposedly.
So I just hope he gets enough to just pay off the debt, even if he's not going to get any, like, you know, what do they call that? Like grievances and damages and all that, emotional, like all that stuff. Even though they took 2 years away from his life and tarnished his reputation and basically canceled this fool online, where you kind of need to be an online presence in the FGC these days. I hope that at least those two things happen. One question that I have for you specifically, because I'm not really a big Skullgirls player, regardless if it's Future Club developing it, Lab Zero, like I'll mess around with it, but nothing like you did. And you kind of touched on it. Do you think in a clear conscience, you can still continue playing Skullgirls now having all this evidence and stuff?
I've been playing it. I mean, like I've been playing it, but a part of me is like, it's my feelings toward it has definitely wavered more and more, man. Because it's like, I don't know, man. Sometimes I just feel like the steak isn't cooked well enough anymore. You know what I mean? Like every time I play it, it's just like I just feel like the steak ain't been cooked well enough. I don't know what it is, but I just can't.
Is it raw?
It's like medium well.
Okay.
Like not. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I guess people eat medium well. Kind of raw. I would say. Yeah. Little too much pink.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I have fun playing the game, but I just don't like the new DLC characters too. I just don't like them. Even though I do like the fact that they add more variety and not everybody's using Big Bang anymore, but I kind of prefer to just deal with Ban all day. I don't know what it is, but
He's got better voice
I don't know.
lines.
He's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, he's got better. That's true,
Yeah.
man. I will say I've just been playing more Rivals. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Been playing a lot more Rivals, and whenever like Persona gets rollback, that
Yeah.
might be a gone thing. But oh, there is one thing I did want to add to right quick is that I think the fact that this guy, like, and I think Arcapa said it, there was like, yo, what would they think thinking that they could get away with somebody as autistic as this guy, man? He's gonna put all of these like they did, yeah, all the
Fucking
articles,
Kappa, dude.
all pieces, man. Yeah, man. Dude, because think about it, it's like I don't know how educated he is in this type of matter. Like the fact that he's so socially awkward, he decided to go to a lawyer about this stuff
Yeah.
kind of shows like because usually people with that spectrum they tend to feel like they're lying or they're faking or
Hmm.
they gotta put a mask on. So it's like this dude felt so like
Yeah.
in his heart he felt so strongly. This is why I say he could be really angry and want them to burn, or he could really be just wanting to defend himself. But he felt so strongly that he decided to actually go through some sort of legal venue through
Yep.
this. I mean, hey man, he's willing to do it.
I think a big start of those documents, right, when he's talking about his autism, he's saying, oh, there's a quote of people. He always heard the phrase people tell him is like, oh, that's just Mike being Mike. And I think he's just fed
Yeah,
up with that. I think he's just fed up with people just
yeah,
coloring him
man.
with that wide brush of being like, oh, it's just
It's
Mike being
true.
Mike. So,
That's true, man. Yeah, yeah. They did do that a lot. I mean, in one of the parts when he was talking to the friend, they just realized one of the two employees, they realized that, yeah, oh, you have autism. And he was like, yeah, this actually felt really hard for to anyone that I actually do have to deal with autism. And they just
mhm.
realized, I don't know if you saw that part, but yeah, that was
Yeah,
one of the yeah, and like the other employee kind of just was like understood that, but and that realization didn't really come to like 2020. Of
right.
course, you probably knew the dude wasn't right in the head. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like this dude probably got something going on, but for him to actually say that is a bit different because that means that he understands what he has
Yeah,
compared to like. I mean, also I would say that if he like he did just he got just now clinically diagnosed with the spectrum. So, and it was in 2020. So, I mean,
hmm,
like this guy just realized, maybe I should get diagnosed.
yeah,
Sometimes the diagnosis, sometimes it can help, sometimes it can't help. But in this case, it could probably help him, give him like medications and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I mean, he was willing to do that, and he even put it in the legal documentation. So, I mean, I just think that if this dude felt this strongly enough to drop this, man, he is, yeah, man. Maybe it is Mike being Mike.
Maybe Mike being Mike.
Still recording?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all we got. To be honest, I mean, we covered this pretty good. I thought.
I actually had something else, man,
Go
that I
ahead.
wanted to add to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mind, but
Yeah.
one thing I learned is that there was like another Reddit that posted the article, and they were saying that the thing is that the problem is they had with the document is that they were like, "Well, this you guys need to remember, this is just a document. This is all retelling in Mike's perspective.
Right.
We don't necessarily know." And it kind of was like it was kind of like playing devil's advocate, but still not too much on the side of Mike. And one thing that I realized is just that whenever they mention that, they only really mention about like his interactions, and this is how they were playing devil's advocate. They talk about the many interactions he had that weren't really good with other people, and they were like the sexually, driven type of interactions. And one thing they didn't notice is that the other stuff, like, okay, so yeah, sure, there's that, but what about them lying to him about the goddamn focus company, or them like just being like just kind of slowly trying to overtake this dude's company. That's the stuff they don't mention in their side of trying to be like, okay, nah, I think our cop was parroting each other, but then it's like, but still, there's like a lot of parts where there's a lot of discrepancies in a lot of the interactions. I mean, there's still like problems. There's still like still didn't tell them about the focus thing. They still kind of tried to overtake them. They plotted it. They knew they
Right.
had the slack and all these things, man. That's just all I had thought of right there. But yeah, man, pretty much.
You know, I understand that point. Like, it's not like I want the, I kind of do, but like, it's not like I'm like, oh, I want Mike Z to be free. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
but here's the thing: if there were receipts of Mike Z being, you know, sexually weird, we would see more of them. And the only thing I really got to look at is the bunny conversation. And if that's all you got, sorry, that's not good enough for me.
Yeah, man, it is not.
So we'll see what happens. If we get a counter to the counter, then we'll see what happens. But right now, I just wanted to, you know, shed some light on this because it doesn't seem like anybody's really talking about it. And
I don't even feel like we'll get it doesn't even seem like we're gonna get a reaction in the case of this Mike's, unless we're the ones that stir the pot up.
Shit, let's get it. Let's get it.
Right.
Hollywood.
I don't think that'll happen, but it's weird how it's just not been. Was the infiltration thing like this, man? Did people talk about it at all?
Somewhat in small circles. I don't think that's another one where people didn't get the whole story. People were really quick to being like, "Oh, he's a wife beater." I was like, "Oh, word, really? Is that what happened, or is that what you want to happen?" So you can continue pushing that agenda. But
yeah. I think he's done something else that's kind of scummy recently, though, right?
Did he? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but I will say, going back to that, that because that was in that same kind of context where he went through it like the legal way.
Yep.
Then that's when the actual thing got brought to light. Then people, I mean, they hated him, man. Like,
yeah.
They hated infiltration, dude.
They
didn't have the whole story.
That's what I'm saying. And when I'm saying this comment, I don't have the whole story either. I remember reading it for a while, but who knows what else has come out since. But the way I felt, similar to this Mike Z thing, I felt that the same way the Lab Zero employees were using sexual harassment as a smokescreen for money with Mike Z, I felt that Infiltration's wife was using domestic abuse as a smokescreen for the house. He bought a $100,000 house, man. I mean, kind of seemed like she wanted that house. So
yeah, man, she wanted that house.
I don't know, but I'm saying we need everybody to get the full story instead of just running with one piece of information. So we'll see what happens with Mike Z. We'll see what happens with Infiltration, but I'm not willing to take one side or the other before I have a clear picture of what's happening, which is, you know, FGC Twitter doesn't work that way. They take something like they're running. So here at Hollywood, we don't do that.
Yeah, you just parrot whatever the hell the last dude said, and then nobody's questioning anything. It's like, you lost your dog. Well, did you leave the door unlocked?
Right.
I'm just saying, you know, hey, you know, did you not hold his leash hard enough? I'm just saying.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Pringle, I appreciate you coming on, talking about this. Hopefully, I hope we stir the pot. I hope this comes out. And for real, like, I want justice. I want vindication.
Vindication. I love that show, man.
I love it. But yeah, let's get out of here. Pringle, my man, appreciate you coming on. I know this is like a different setting than FGC Hollywood, but it's still nice having you on every so often. And yeah, who knows? Maybe Clayton's next on FGC Hollywood.
he's gonna get his, it seems like.
He will. All right, let's get out of here. Everybody, appreciate y'all listening, and we'll catch y'all later. Peace.
Take care, y'all. Peace.